In Hollywood, where stories are often born under bright lights and end in applause, there are moments when reality delivers a narrative so dark, so bewildering, that even the most experienced storytellers struggle to comprehend it. This is one of those stories. A story that does not begin with scandal or suspicion, but with warmth, familiarity, and a sense of normalcy that now feels almost unbearable to remember. In early November, cinematographer Barry Markowitz arrived in Los Angeles for what should have been a routine professional milestone. He was in town for the premiere of his latest film, The Perfect Gamble, a project he had poured years of effort into. Like countless industry visits before it, the trip was expected to be short, busy, and unremarkable. But a phone call changed everything. Rob Reiner, legendary filmmaker, cultural icon, and longtime friend, insisted Barry stay with him and his wife, Michelle, at their home. Not for convenience, not for formality, but because Rob believed that when friends come to town, they belong with family, not alone in a hotel room. Barry accepted, unaware that those 5 days would later become some of the most haunting memories of his life. Inside the Reiner household, there was no hint of darkness, no tension in the air, no warning signs that tragedy was lurking just weeks away. Instead, the home was filled with rhythm, routine, and warmth. It was a house that felt lived in, loved in, and grounded in habits formed over decades. Dinner was sacred. Every evening, the family gathered around the table. No rush. No distractions. Just food, conversation, and shared presence. Barry recalls it as old-school family life, the kind that feels increasingly rare, especially in Hollywood. There were laughs, reflections, and the quiet comfort of familiarity. Rob Reiner, a man who shaped generations of cinema, was exactly as friends had always described him. Affectionate, expressive, overflowing with love. He joked easily, listened intently, and treated everyone in the room with equal respect. Michelle mirrored that warmth. She was attentive, gentle, and deeply engaged, a steady emotional center in the household. And then there was Nick. Nick Reiner, 32 years old, was present during Barry's stay. He didn't hide in his room. He didn't isolate himself. He sat with the family, talked, listened, and participated. He helped around the house, doing chores like taking out the garbage and washing dishes. He watched television with his parents and their guest. He moved through the home comfortably, as someone who belonged there. Barry noticed that Nick looked good, healthy, grounded. He spent time outside, playing tennis and basketball, returning home with the ease of someone living a normal routine. There was no visible fear for his safety, no tension in his interactions with his parents, no sign of imminent conflict. What Barry witnessed was not a family in crisis. It was a family still trying. That distinction matters. For years, the Rieners had been open about Nick's struggles with addiction. They never hid it, never denied it, and never walked away from it. Rob and Michelle fought alongside their son through cycles of hope and relapse, commitment and exhaustion. They sought the best treatment available, not throwing money blindly at the problem, but pursuing real help, structure, and accountability. They believed in boundaries, but they believed even more in love. That belief was evident during Barry's visit. Rob had not given up. Michelle had not given up. And Nick, at least on the surface, appeared to be standing with them. Barry later said that what troubles him most isn't something he noticed, but something he didn't. There were no arguments, no explosive moments, no sense of danger. The atmosphere in the home was calm, loving, and real. I only saw love, Barry would later say. And I don't think it was fake. That memory would soon clash violently with reality. On December 14, the entertainment world awoke to news that felt impossible to process. Rob Reiner, 78, and his wife Michelle, 70, were found dead in their Brentwood home. Multiple stab wounds. A scene that stood in stark contrast to the warmth Barry had experienced just weeks earlier. The shock intensified when authorities confirmed that their son Nick had been arrested at the scene and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. The news rippled outward instantly. Hollywood froze. Fans reeled. Friends struggled to reconcile the headlines with the people they knew. How does a house filled with love become a crime scene? Barry Markowitz asked himself that same question. Over and over again. He replayed those 5 days in November in his mind. The dinners. The conversations. Nick sitting comfortably with his parents. Rob's laughter. Michelle's presence. the ordinariness of it all. I might have been one of the last people to see them, Barry said quietly, the weight of that realization settling heavily on his shoulders. What makes this tragedy especially unsettling is not just the loss of two beloved lives, but the absence of an obvious explanation. This was not a story of neglect. It was not a story of abandonment. It was not a story of indifference. Rob Reiner was deeply involved in his son's life. He was present, vocal, and committed. He didn't shy away from the painful realities of addiction, even turning those experiences into art through the film Being Charlie, a deeply personal exploration of substance abuse and fractured family dynamics. In interviews, Rob spoke openly about how exhausting and heartbreaking the journey could be, but he never framed it as hopeless. He spoke like a father who still believed, and during Barry's visit, that belief seemed intact. Nick was not portrayed as a stranger in the home. He was not treated as an outsider. He was family, which is why the tragedy has left so many people unsettled. Because it disrupts the comforting narrative that love alone can prevent disaster. Sometimes it cannot. As legal proceedings began, authorities remained cautious, releasing few details. The public, hungry for answers, was left with questions that may never fully be resolved. What happened inside that house? What changed between November and December? What moment tipped the balance? No one outside that home truly knows. What remains are memories. Fragments of warmth preserved in time, now tinged with grief. Tributes poured in from across the entertainment industry. Actors who worked with Rob remembered him as a generous collaborator and a director who elevated everyone around him. Friends spoke of Michelle's kindness, creativity, and quiet strength. Colleagues recalled Rob's humor, his passion, and his unshakable humanity. But behind every tribute was the same shared heartbreak. This wasn't supposed to be how the story ended. For Barry, the tragedy carries a deeply personal weight. His memories are not of a public figure or a headline, but of a man offering a guest room, a family sharing dinner, and a son sitting with his parents. Those images now exist in painful contrast to the reality that followed. Barry does not speculate. He does not judge. He does not claim to understand what happened. What he offers instead is a reminder that, until the very end, love existed in that home. And perhaps that is the most difficult truth to accept, because it forces us to confront a reality that is uncomfortable and frightening. That even in households filled with care, effort, and devotion, tragedy can still find its way inside. The Reiner home, once filled with routine and warmth, now stands as a symbol of how fragile family dynamics can be, even when anchored by love. Rob Reiner spent his life telling stories that made people laugh, cry, and believe in connection. Michelle spent hers nurturing creativity and compassion. Their legacy is not erased by how their lives ended, but it is forever shadowed by it. And Nick, now at the center of an unfolding legal battle, remains a figure of deep complexity. A son who was loved. A son who struggled. A son whose story is now inseparable from an unspeakable tragedy. For the rest of the world, this story may be consumed as news, as headlines, as speculation. But for those who knew the Brieners, it is something far more painful. It is the memory of a family still trying. Barry Markowitz's account does not provide answers. It provides something quieter and perhaps more powerful. A glimpse into the final chapter before everything changed. A reminder that moments of love do not disappear just because tragedy follows them. They remain, frozen in time, and they ask us to sit with the discomfort of not knowing. Because not every Hollywood story has a clear villain. Not every tragedy comes with warning signs. And not every loving home is safe from heartbreak. Some stories end not with closure, but with silence. And the echo of love that once filled a room. For more deeply researched, emotionally grounded, and truth-driven celebrity stories that go beyond headlines and into the human reality behind fame, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because some stories deserve to be told with care, depth, and respect.